So my name is Gray. I grew up in Orlando, Florida. I grew up in a church and in a family that was very conservative, Christianity-wise. They are also Caribbean. There's also the Black culture. And so overall, not very accepting of queerness. But I definitely have always felt like queer inclinations. And I was even homophobic, I will say. As friends would like start coming out throughout puberty and stuff like that, I would talk to them and be like, hey, like, this is not real, right? Or like, are you just trying something? Like, because you know this is not okay. When I moved up here to Philadelphia, I was in the worship team at this church. I met this girl and immediately was drawn to her. I was like, wow, she's like so cool and so edgy. And like, I really want to know everything about her and ask her all the questions. So I started having those feelings toward her, just like thinking that she was cute or whatever. But all the while, not at all leaning into them. I'd gotten to the point where I was like, all right, people have queer thoughts. It's fine. Just don't act on them. We actually became good friends because I texted her while I was like in distress one day. Around that time, I was going through a lot of depression. So I texted her and I was like, hey, like, I know we haven't really had deep conversations like this before, but you seem like a trustworthy person to talk to. Like, can I just kind of tell you some things that I've been going through? She was immediately like, yeah, what's up? And I literally just like spilled everything to her, you know, not any of the queer stuff, but just kind of like, I feel like I'm doing everything right. I'm like waking up and like reading the Bible and meditating and praying. But I was like, I'm like so sad. And she was just so receptive throughout the whole thing. She was just like, yeah, that sucks, you know? And we talked for a long time. And at the end of the conversation, she said, yeah, I mean, you can talk to me anytime. And I was like, all right, sure. And she was like, no, I'm serious. And I was like, well, if I can text you anytime, like, I'm going to text you at 5:00 in the morning when I wake up and I'm like already depressed, you know? And she was like, all right. Like clockwork, the next morning, 5:00, the depression hits. I text her and she's like, hey, what's up? I was like, wow, like she really does mean like anytime. And from that point, we were just like texting nonstop. And it got to a point where I was like, wow, like I feel extremely connected to this person and this person is cute. And I'm like, all right, I will admit that I have a crush on her. So yeah, me, the crush, and our friend had a sleepover at my apartment. And for some reason, like, we started talking about kind of queer related things. So I think they were talking about Pride. And I said, you know, what do you think about Pride? And my crush was like, what do you mean? And I said, isn't it like not okay? And our friend was like, what do you mean not okay? Like, it seems so much fun. And I said, no, but like, because it's like gay people, you know, and we should not be celebrating that. And my crush was like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't care. I did end up telling our friend the day after the sleepover that I had a crush on my crush. And the friend said, oh, you should just tell her. It's not that big of a deal. And I said, okay. A week after the sleepover, I texted her and I said, hey, I have something to tell you. And she said, yeah, what's up? And I said, so like, I have a crush on you. And she was like, oh, okay. And I was like, is that weird? Like, do you want me to like give you space? Like, is it awkward? She was like, no, like, why would it be? And we just continued talking as friends and as like very connected friends. A month after I told her that I had a crush on her, I flew back to Florida just to visit my family. One night I was texting her, you know, from Florida, and I said, so I think I'm in love with you. And she said, I feel the same way. And I was like, no, no, because now it's scary because like now it's a real thing. 3 days later, I came back from Florida. She picked me up from the airport. And when she got to my apartment, I said, hey, like, do you want to come up? And she was like, yeah, sure. And we were just talking and hanging out, and it just felt really great to be back in each other's presence. As she was going to leave, you know, we turned to like have a hug, and we ended up hugging for 3 hours. And then we said goodbye, which was still very hard, still hard after saying goodbye for 3 hours in a hug. But then very quickly, the religious upbringing, indoctrination, programming kicked in. It felt clear to me that it's like, all right, I either live and be like, live in a life that I was taught to live and be like super duper depressed the whole time, but then like maybe die and be happy, or like I just can't live at all. And I literally walked like 20 or so blocks down to a bridge. I did end up calling a friend while I was up there and was able to process some things through. All the while, you know, this woman I love was texting me and trying to call me throughout. I did eventually answer her phone call, and she talked me down even more. So after that, I walked home. As I was processing, you know, what had very seriously almost happened throughout that next week, I kind of just started this mantra of I'm just doing my best, you know, and jumping from this point of I'm just doing what makes me feel like I don't want to die. So for me, that meant trying to find community to survive with. Honestly, I just looked up on Instagram queer faith or queer Christians or queer spirituality. I came across some queer Christian pages where they were preaching, and queer pastors who were preaching. So it kind of got to this place where I was like, all right, it seems to me that no one has the answer. So once again, I'm going to do what makes me feel like I don't want to die. And so that meant leaning into the queer theology. So that led me to finding community online, then finding community in person, and then coming to a place where I can accept and be proud of who I am. And that has brought me to where I am today. So I did eventually come out to my parents. It went about as expected. I've had top surgery. I've come to accept myself more, even just gender-wise. That person I loved, like, we are definitely together now. And it's been a couple years. We have a dog. We have 2 cats. We plan to move in together next year. Falling in love was the catalyst for accepting who I am. It's inseparable from accepting myself, from coming out to myself, from, you know, even simultaneously falling in love with myself. You know, it was definitely a rough journey, but I have to say it was worth it.